nothing is in isolation, right? Everything is interconnected. Whether you look at the cell structure below a tree and all of the relationships between the hypha and just how things feed and help each other grow, when things are stressed, how things pull back.
The more that we can recognize that that is the actual quality of the world, that ultimately it's a unity, I think the more that we can act as if that were the case and make things work better, discover together how to make things work better.
Networks are all around us, hidden in plain sight. As Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. has written, we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. The universe is basically a constellation of networks. There are biological networks, there are neurological networks, there are technological networks, and there are social networks. And then there are impact networks, deliberate human networks for positive social and environmental change.
I think networks are probably the perfect structure for today's world.
There has to be ways to work at different scales and to interconnect those ways of doing. And you have to have involvement of different disciplines, different types of organizations. The way to do that is through impact networks.
As you know, our ability to collaborate effectively has never been more essential. Impact networks provide a pathway for engaging across geographies, sectors, and organizations to do more together than we could ever do alone.
We're coming together, we're collaborating for impact.
There has to be a mechanism by which all these organizations can work together. It has to be somebody's job to create the container.
To bring different people from different sectors to come together for a common goal and for a common good that then achieves an impact, something that wouldn't have otherwise happened if they hadn't come together.
We all know that there's problems and obstacles to what we do. We can spend a lot of time inventorying those, reflecting on them, dwelling on them. Where I think the collective opportunity is, what are the solutions we have not even thought through, unlocked, untapped? And that's where the network, I think, brings its secret sauce, because it can do that. It can bring those voices together that you normally don't have day in, day out, working together on something that really needs that scale of thinking and that creativity and that innovation.
A network that has impact must be able to break systems that don't work for the common good of the people. Otherwise, the system always wins. And so some of that requires a lot of courage, one, commitment, and really voice. And a word that I have come to love, audacity.
When we understand that everything is connected, we envision our role within a larger web of activity, not as the central hub. Rather than scaling up individual organizations, we seek to scale out.
A lot of the organizations in many networks are regular top-down organizations. So the network is then a mechanism by which they can all figure out how to cooperate together. So it's not that it gets rid of the top-down organization necessarily. It's a way to not let those organizations be siloed.
When we work together across boundaries for a shared purpose, we dramatically expand what is possible.
So the Santa Cruz Mountain Stewardship Network covers all of San Mateo County, Santa Cruz County, and the western part of Santa Clara County, and then to the west of Silicon Valley. So there's a mountain range right there full of beautiful redwoods and mountain lions and grasslands. And there are 23 organizations in the network. And one of the things that we're trying to do is landscape stewardship. They're working together on things like fire and invasive species, forest health, water issues. We're trying to think of the region as a whole. You can't do that without collaboration. Different organizations actually have different goals for the land. So part of the point of the network is to find out, where do they agree? And that way, we can get a lot done without ever having to say we have one strategic plan. That would actually get in our way to have to do that.
Strategy must be not only deliberate, but emergent, embracing experimentation, learning, and flexibility.
I specifically coordinate young Africans with incredible ideas about the future of the continent to move their projects forward, but also to receive mentorship and support and resources to be able to do that. When people look at the NGFP Africa Network, for example, they can automatically see that, oh my God, that is a group of young people who are influencing policy by being able to envision and shape a better, desirable future for the continent. For me, that was the first impact that we made, agreeing on what we want to do and what our journey is. How then do we take our voices, our solutions, to the decision-making processes or to the system where our voice, expertise, and needs are missing?
What we're trying to do at the Robert Sterling Clark Foundation is really try to create a more vibrant and equitable New York. And we do that by investing in her people. The Sterling Network, it's comprised of 60 people who in some ways represent a microcosm of New York City. So they come from a really diverse array of lived experience, but also public, private, nonprofit sectors and an array of issues, whether it's affordable housing or justice reform or food security or K-12 education. Our role is to provide the resources and hopefully some support, saying, we believe in the work that you're doing. Go do your work. However you need to deploy the resources, it's fine for us because we believe in what you're doing.
I work with two networks. The larger network is the California Landscape Stewardship Network. We have about 30 different networks within the larger network. They cover about 40% of California, from nonprofits to governmental to private to academic institutions who are innovating solutions that enable us to work at the scale needed to care for our lands during a time of a changing climate and all the other stresses.
I work for a network called AFRACA. AFRACA was established for the sole purpose of addressing the issue of rural and agricultural finance in Africa. We are close to 110 members in 33 countries. The other day I was joking with my boss and I was telling him, you know, we have a 5-year strategic plan, but being in this sector, sometimes we just don't know what to expect because there are just so many emerging issues that sometimes you have to quickly innovate. I think with networks, we have the flexibility to innovate and to address challenges in real time.
And that's one of the beautiful things about a network and a partnership. It can stand the test of time if that's what it needs to do to be able to administer its work, or it can be catalytic in a moment to be able to galvanize some critical ideas to bring then focus and resources for the future.
You just don't wake up as a network and say, great, we're going to break the system today. No, you gotta start from somewhere.
The Justice in Motion Defender Network is comprised of over 45 organizations across Mexico and Central America. How do we protect migrant rights across borders? A lot of the members of our network were really set on this idea that we had to have almost like an annual plan. And really what we learned was that you have to start with, are we all here for the same reason? Do we all have the same goal? And do we want to clarify what that purpose is so that we all understand it the same way?
A strong sense of purpose is what inspires us to show up, stick around, and follow through. The truth is that we can't actually solve complex challenges, but we can engage them over time, convening the right people, learning through experimentation, all in the service of finding a shared path forward.
It's all emergent, and it comes from people interacting with each other and people who come from different worlds or different fields, kind of spurring each other and causing things to kind of pop out like, oh, I hadn't thought of that, or what if we tried this?
There's all kinds of things that are happening in the network. For instance, right now we're working on a vegetation mapping project for all of Santa Cruz and Santa Clara County that will give an incredible amount of data to help avoid catastrophic wildfire. This is a several $million project, would not have happened without the network, and so that'll be a huge impact. We have a climate adaptation team. We also have a fire and forest health team. We have 2 trails teams. We have a permitting team. This is actually a cool story. The permits are kind of the same for people who are doing restoration work than if you're building a new condo or something. They are difficult, they take a long time, it's expensive, so they can actually stop good work that would help restore ecosystems. We were able to kick that work up to the California Landscape Stewardship Network, and that network actually adopted it to think of it more at a statewide level. And then that work was taken on by the Secretary of Natural Resources, Wade Crowfoot, who made it one of his initiatives, and it's called Cutting Green Tape. After a certain point, our network didn't have anything to do with it, except for one of our members worked on it all the way to the end. But it just shows kind of the power of networks.
One of the themes we look at as a network is environmental futures. Part of unlocking that involves me going to the ground and really being with them, experiencing the reality with them, and really working together with them in finding solutions to their problems. And when you're influencing policy as young futurists, interfacing with policymakers, you can also carry their message. And that for me is really that collective effort, that collaborating for impact, but also in the spirit of leaving no one behind, even as we are shaping desirable futures.
It's profound what happens when people with overlapping goals come together to self-organize. But this rarely happens on its own. The people who enable networks to thrive are called network leaders. Leadership always matters, but this is not hierarchical leadership. Command and control are replaced with connection and collaboration. By cultivating relationships, learning, and action, network leaders support others to discover what they can do together that they can never do alone.
That model of everyone works together and then something very cool arises out of that without any one person being like, here's our plan. Like, as the manager of the network, I'm not the boss of the network. I work for them.
If your network has a purpose or multiple purposes to achieve certain types of impact, you follow a certain type of cadence in the building of it to being able to then sustain it over time.
There's a real intentionality that comes with an impact network that is very different from networking or just having like a vast pool of people who you call your network.
We have this situation in which we're listening to what the needs of the network organizations are, who are listening to what the needs of the land are. That process of listening then produces all these different projects and conversations. But without that, none of it would happen.
If you invest the time, if you commit to mutual learning and and you commit to getting to know the people that you could potentially be working with, you would find that there's so much value and so much valuable information. You should always be thinking, what can't we do alone that we could do if we work together?
Networks are only as strong as the relationships that hold them together. We realize our collective potential when we move at the speed of trust.
Some people think about trust, trust for likability, trust for friendship, trust for agreement. And it's not about that at all. It's actually trust for impact or trust for action.
Working in networks oftentimes takes a little bit more time, but if you do that due diligence from the beginning, building that trust, building that connectivity amongst the individual organizations, the collective has a lot more strength in the long term and is more durable in its network function.
Once you make the commitment to work together to achieve something, that's going to come with a commitment to take the necessary steps to be able to work together. And that involves learning, it involves trust, it involves dedication, commitment, time.
The secret source would be trust. When you have the trust of your members, I think everything just flows. You're able to unlock so much.
You already know how interconnected we are. So let us answer the call of our time to honor our independence, yes, but also our interdependence.
I think in my heart, I wish more people would embrace networks, but networks are complex and they're messy and they're hard. And simpler is hierarchy and ownership and control. And so I think the default becomes that mechanism as opposed to the opportunity and the potential that networks afford.
What's more effective?
I would say that networks in the end are going to show us the way forward.
More and more people are realizing that with globalization and humans being able to see what's happening across borders all over the world, there's this huge potential to mobilize in a way that we hadn't seen before, and really impact networks are the future.
Certainly in land stewardship, it's so obviously needed.
I think when you get the investment at a local level and you have that shared ownership from the very beginning, the durability of what you create is going to be greater than anything that could ever be top down.